Because it's useless to try and prove anything to anybody.
What else do you remember about that time?
I'll just tell you about some of the moments that I've witnessed. I remember that there was a combat. Georgian helicopters were hovering over and firing at us, and there was nothing we could do. There behind us, we were sitting outside of school, and there were tall buildings behind us. So when we heard the noise, the loud shooting from the front, we discovered that someone was firing at us from behind, shooting down at us. When it happened again, I saw it, and I ran over to the buildings. I worked out more or less which one it was coming from and ran up to the roof, where I found his hideout. He would come out, do the shooting, and then go back inside again. That's what I saw, and at that moment the helicopter took off. And well, to cut a long story short, I rushed down again and started running along the road. Then all of a sudden, what do I see? I see children running, about 20 of them, little ones, you know, 5-year-olds, some very small and some a little older. I yell at them in Abkhazian, Shia, Shia, which means get down. And you know what? They all froze, rooted to the ground and just stared at me while the helicopter was they were already shooting. I yelled in Russian, lie down, and they did. It turns out that Georgians were living there, and children had found somewhere to hide, poor things. A shell had probably fallen on their hiding place, and they had all run outside, and can you imagine? I will never forget those eyes. Do you understand? For them, I was the enemy. But I never intended. I had no intention, for God's sake. But in this moment, the adults were also there, and I yelled at them too, because you must understand the poor things thought that if they went one way, they'd be killed, and they couldn't go anywhere else. So these are the kind of things that I've experienced. There was another time when we were in a fire combat, and I was doing the target location. Well, I had to do the targeting because they were trying to push tanks between the houses. And we were trying to. It wasn't easy, but we were trying. You know how it is? There were two open spaces. One was slightly lower, the other one slightly higher, and we were firing at the tanks on the lower ground. I was on the periscope. There was this periscope where I sat watching, and you know, all of a sudden, the smoke of the fire combat cleared, and I moved my periscope, and I saw. I was looking at the ground above us with new housing, and at the end of the empty space, the little girl was playing on the swings. Can you imagine the state of mind? There you are, an artist, right? A pacifist, actually. But an interesting guy, huh? And you're there as if defending your country, and then you see, or rather you understand how, when you remember it all. You know what? To be honest, right now you're doing this interview and trying to tell the story, but you can't tell it like I can. If you want to capture the essence of war, you can do it by just talking about one day, just one story. I remember one time when, here's something else I'll tell you. It was very interesting, like a Bruegel. Bruegel's an artist with very interesting landscapes, a Flemish artist. So you see, we're sitting there, we're fighting, firing, etc. We're sitting in the auxiliary observation post, as it's called, the command post. And I looked over and saw Sukhum. She's on fire. A city, you understand, a city is burning. They were shelling, we were shelling. In other words, firing all around. Horrible. And suddenly my friend says, look, look. And I saw, ahead of us, there was a little mound. It's called Kuteshkha. And a little farther up are Armenian graves. Small but visible graves. And between those graves, you know, how should I put it? An uneven...
Banked earth?
Not banked earth. A kind of, you know, a kind of meadow. and there was a man mowing with a scythe across the corner of it. In other words, between us, between the burning city and the command post under fire, there's a man mowing. From time to time, he would stop and look at something. Then he seemed to turn towards us. You know, Bruegel has a painting called The Fall of Icarus. I remembered it because the thing is, there is no Icarus in the painting. What you see is someone herding sheep, someone plowing. Everyone is getting on with their lives. But Icarus is somewhere in the sea where he fell. We can only see his leg sticking out of the water. You're in this situation, you know, where everything's collapsing, but a man is mowing hay. You know, it's surreal, it's sobering. There were so many things like that happening at that time. So many of them I remember. In general, if anyone tries to convince you that he did miracles, don't believe him. You don't get miracles anymore. Everyone involved is a loser. Everyone. The only winners are those who did not participate. There's no such thing as a good war. I went to confession and I said, I was talking to the priest, well, to God, with the priest listening. And I said, I was there in the war, fighting, and I killed people. And he answered, well, you were defending. I know I was defending. But that doesn't make it any easier to bear. These things are horrendous. My brother, my older brother, is a hero of Abkhazia. After the war was over, not that long ago, 3 years, he killed himself. Suicide. He had simply become unneeded. It wasn't what he lived for, especially as times change so fast.